About 10, 15 minutes later, we heard an explosion of noise because the Beatles were there and the fans went nuts. And they walk in with their manager, Brian Epstein, the four guys, and they had a couple of their entourage. They walk up, everyone shakes hands. Elvis is so-and-so and so-and-so. Elvis sits in a chair, and the four Beatles sit down on the floor in front of Elvis in a semicircle. Ringo, Paul, John, and George, cross-legged. Because if you saw, some of you have seen Elvis. My God, he looks like he stepped out of the Bible, like King David or something. So all of a sudden, there's a silence in the room. It went on for about 15 seconds. That's a long time. It got a little bit weird, eerie. And Elvis said, well, the hell with you guys. I'm going to my bedroom. You don't want to talk to me. And everyone laughed, and it broke the ice. And John and Paul, and they all stood up, and John said, Elvis, we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you, man. You're the guy. I got into all this because of you. I learned the guitar because of you. There'd be no Beatles. There'd be no one else. You did it, man. We want you to know that we love you. And that's why we're here. You're the man. You're it, So they were sincere, and they were speaking the truth. So as the night wore on, Colonel Parker and Brian went into the living room because the colonel had a roulette table set up. And they talk shop amongst themselves. All of our guys went in another part in the other room, and then we had a pool table. So Ringo and George went, and Red and Sonny and Alan and Richard, they all went in the other room, play pool. And Jerry and myself and one other guy sat with Elvis, John, and Paul in the den. And Elvis had all of his guitars on stands. John said, Elvis, can I play your guitar? And I said, yeah, man, pick it up. John picks up one of Elvis' guitars. So, there was a bass. And Paul said, Elvis, can I? Yeah, man. Picks it up. Elvis turns around and picks up his Martin. They start playing, strumming together. And I'm thinking to myself, in the space-time continuum, I'm in the perfect place. Where else? This is perfection. This is the magic moment. Elvis and the Beatles, and they started singing a couple of songs. And went on for now in those days, forget cell phones, There were not even cassettes in those days. Elvis had in the room a reel, the big reel-to-reel tapes, but no one recorded anything. If you ever hear someone record this, because I've heard. And Colonel Parker would not allow any pictures to be taken, so not even pictures were taken. But those guys played. It was magical. It was beautiful. And a few other cool things happened, but I want to keep moving because there's a few other things I want to cover. It was a wonderful, wonderful time, and Elvis really liked those guys a lot. And he and John, John had Elvis's hot number, real private phone number, and over the years they spoke a few times. At any rate, check this out, because here's a story you don't know. And this is beautiful, is history. And I was there. I wasn't lucky, I was blessed. 2 weeks later, the movie's over, and in those days, excuse me, in those days, Elvis would not fly. We drove from Los Angeles to Memphis. Took us a couple of days, and Elvis would ride and drive his Dodge mobile home. Later on, became a Greyhound. But he would drive only at night. He didn't want to be seen. He didn't want to be bothered. He wanted to be free. He wanted to be away from everything. And this was a chance for him to do that. And we had a caravan of cars. All the guys were driving the cars. Drive back to Memphis. God, I can't believe the fortunate things that happened to me. Because my first trip to Memphis, we got there, I said, Elvis, I'd like to have a car to drive. I stayed at Graceland. There was a room downstairs next to the pool room. And he said, yeah, come on, I'll show you. He took me outside. He said, you drive that car. It was a pink Cadillac. That was my car for years. The guys didn't want to even drive it because every year Elvis would lease a fleet of new cars, usually station wagons, and there's no SUVs in those days. And they would want the latest car with the latest stuff and brand new. And I got the pink Cadillac and I loved it. Anyway, we're in the Dodge mobile home. We've been in there for maybe 12, 15, 18 hours, whatever it was. We're in the Arizona desert. It was pitch black out. And Elvis had a cartridge, and if you all know the 8-track cartridges before cassettes. And he loved Roy Orbison. And he had the best of Roy Orbison. So he put it in. There was a few guys in the cab with us. And I'm sitting shotgun, right, like I always did, right next to Elvis. He put it in, and piped in is Roy Orbison singing, "Only the Lonely." And all of a sudden, Elvis starts to sing with Roy Orbison. I'm thinking, I don't believe my life anymore. Elvis is singing with Roy Orbison. God, when I think about it, it's so joyful for me. And at the same time, my heart aches. So, excuse me if you should pick up on that. When the song was over, Elvis turned down the volume and he looks at me. He says, I got it. I got it. I got it. I said, what? I'm going to produce my own album. This is going to be mine. No one else's. I don't want anyone to touch it. RCA, no one. I'm going to select every song, and it's going to be a gospel, spiritual album. I've got to do it. And the reason this happened is because he was flashed by the Beatles. It was working on him. Something was churning in him. He was getting so frustrated with the movies that he was making. He wanted to make real movies that I'll tell you about later. And he had to do something, and then most natural, because that's Elvis's tunnel and root system, gospel music. That's where he learned to sing in the church, right? So over the next 6-8 months, he would listen. He had the greatest collection of albums from the 40s and the 50s, and Red West and Charlie Hodge would bring songs to Elvis. And when we were in Memphis, he would listen, and he chose the music he wanted. We go to Nashville to go to RCA to record the album. We go to the Albert Pike Motel. We go to Elvis's room, and we're getting ready to go to the studio, only record at night. And Elvis said, listen, you guys, you all go down to the car. Larry and I need to talk. What else is new? They didn't like it. So they leave, and Elvis said, listen to me. What I'm going to be doing tonight is something profound. My ego has got to be out of the way. This isn't rock and roll music. This isn't these movie songs they feed me that I have to do. This is God's music. And you know as well as I do, Larry, God works in mysterious ways. We don't know who's going to listen to it. But I tell you this, if one person can be touched, one person, then I have been doing my job. That's all I care about. So what I'm getting at is, when my ego is out of the way, when I am in touch with that still, small voice within me, then I'll go and use what's been given to me. Turn the lights down. Let's say a prayer. Let's meditate. And that's what we did. For the next 12 minutes or so, in the dark, and all of a sudden, I heard Elvis say, I'm ready. Let's hit it. And that is how great thou art was born. That's where Elvis won his Grammy, appropriately, right? How great thou art. That album is something else. He put everything he's got into it. And I was telling someone earlier that I'm going to talk about when Elvis died. And if I lived through it, and we all lived through it, like Charlie and others, you could hear this for a couple moments. You know Elvis died. Elvis wanted to go to Hollywood and make movies again. He said, I'm going to let go of, and he named all the guys that were going to be fired. 4 people were mentioned that were going to stay with him. And his father knew about it, and we made plans for months. He said, Larry, I don't want to be on pills anymore. I know I messed up. I let it go too long. I know my health has gone down the drain. I haven't been exercising. I want to go on your diet. We'll go to Hawaii. We went on a little trip for about a week to Hawaii. And Elvis leased a home. And it was great. And he laughed and he felt good. He said, we'll lease that house. And we're going to stay there until I get healthy again. And we're going to watch movies every day. And we're going to come up with an idea for a movie and hire screenwriters to craft movies that are right for me. And I'm not going to sing in some of them later down the line, but I'm going to prove to the world that I'm an actor like a Brando or a Dean or these other guys like Steve McQueen. And he really loved Clint Eastwood and Paul Newman. And he mentioned them. So now it's August the 16th. It was about 12:30 at night. And we're leaving on tour that afternoon. And Elvis decided he wanted to go to the dentist. Okay? Elvis did strange things at strange hours. So he said to Joe Esposito and myself, you guys rent a movie when I come back. And we said, Elvis, what are you talking about? You won't go back to 1 o'clock. We can't go to the movies. We're going to Portland, Maine. He said, no, I want to see just one movie. Okay, whatever Elvis wanted, Elvis got. He went to the dentist. Joe and I got on the phones, and it turned out the projectionist got sick with the flu. And Joe and I looked at each other, great. Can't go to the movies. We don't want to go. We don't want Elvis to go. He shouldn't have. So Elvis came back about an hour and a half later. He walked in. I can't even believe I'm telling you this. I'll tell you anyway. Because the truth is the truth. The truth is the truth. And I swore to God, to Elvis Presley, that I would tell the world the truth about his life. He asked me to. April 25th, 1977. And he said, man, Hollywood never got me. The media, they never got me. Some of my fans don't know certain things. I want them to know that I'm a spiritual person, because the world doesn't know I'm spiritual. They'll never get me. Spiritual, listen to his music. He was the most spiritual person I ever met. I've met a lot of people. The door opened and Elvis walked in. He has jumpsuit on, big belts, one of his big belts, sunglasses. He took sunglasses off, and I'm standing about 7-8 feet away, and he looked at me and he went like this. He put his glasses on and he walked upstairs. My heart sank. So much was communicated to me at that moment. I was freaked out. I went in the other room and I sat down, and the next thing I knew, someone was shaking me. Larry, Elvis is on the phone, he wants you. He was upstairs. So he said, Larry. I said, Elvis. And when I heard his voice, it was so bizarre, because he sounded really beautiful and young and buoyant. He said, Larry, what do you think? And he started laughing. And I started laughing. You know, when someone laughs, it becomes infectious almost, and you start laughing. I don't know, Elvis, what do you think? Yeah, you tell me. And we started laughing. And I'm thinking to myself, oh, he's all right. Because, I felt so bad when he shook his head. He was communicating something to me. He said, well, I think is you should get your ass out of the chair and come upstairs. We have so much to talk about. I said, Elvis, you're right. And he sounded really young, like a 16-year-old kid. So it made me feel better. I said, Elvis, we do have a lot to talk about. He said, wait a minute. Did you bring those books? I said, Elvis, are you kidding? Did I bring you books? I said, yeah, I brought the books. He said, well, all right, well, come upstairs, let's talk. I said, no, Elvis, I'm going to go to my room, I'm going to get some sleep. You need to get some sleep. I said, we're going on tour tomorrow. We'll be together every day. I have to take care of your hair tomorrow. I have to color it. He said, all right. Okay, Larry, if that's what you think. I said, I'll see you tomorrow, Elvis. When you wake up, believe me, I'll be there. He said, okay. But Lawrence, he said, I want you to remember one thing. He was quoting from one of the books. Elvis had memorized passages that would blow your mind. He knew the book The Prophet by heart. When he made movies, he would read the script once, twice, three. He knew his lines. There were times when the co-star was in a scene with Elvis. She would drop her lines, and Elvis would whisper her line to her. He knew their lines. At any rate, Elvis said to me, Lawrence, don't forget, angels fly because they take themselves so lightly. Angels fly because they take themselves so lightly. It's the last thing he ever said to me. Last time we ever spoke. I went to my room, and I remember I took my clothes off and I got in bed and I had a book to read. And my phone rang. It was Al Strada, one of Elvis's aides. Larry, Elvis wants his books. He wants those books you brought. All right. I figured I have to get dressed. I said, Al, I'm in bed. He said, all right, I'll come and I'll get them. So he came. It was very nice of him. Came with 3 books. A couple hours later, Elvis's body was found on the floor with that book clutched to his chest. He was reading when he passed away. What went on at Graceland that afternoon, I'll never forget. Lisa Marie, she was 9 years old. I remember she put her hands on, and she said, you know, I can't believe it. Elvis Presley is dead. I was stunned. Wow. Vernon was a wreck. We thought he was going to have a heart attack because he had a bad heart. And he said, come here, Larry, come here. He put his arms around me. And the funeral director came over, Robert Kendall, and he and Vernon came up to me and said, Larry, you got to go and take care of Elvis's hair. You know how he's supposed to look. He would want you to do this. You got to do it, Larry. I said, of course I will. Of course I will. And Robert told me where to go the next morning at 8 o'clock. And Charlie Hodge said, Larry, you can't go by yourself. You can't do this by yourself. You can't. I'll go with you as moral support. I said, okay, Charlie. So 8 o'clock in the morning, I went to the Memphis funeral home. Thousands of people outside the gate. They're all hanging. Nothing was being said by anyone. I just saw people crying. And all I heard was helicopters above me. It was so eerie. The media helicopters and a police helicopter. I'm led down this corridor, this brick corridor, and all I could hear is the sound of my heartbeat reverberating. Bum, 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 bum. And I look at the end, a room, I see a table. And I stopped in my track. I went like that. And this cop grabbed me by the arm. And I said, let me go. I'm all right. Because I knew what I had to do and I knew what I had to face. I walked into the room. There was a table with Elvis's body lying on it. Sheet up to here. I walked to this side of him. Charlie's on the other side. And I looked at that face. I looked at his nose, his eyes. I thought that will never, ever sing again. And I noticed a regrowth of gray hair everywhere. Thank God there was a female mortician. And I said, do you have your mascara? And she did. Thank God it was black. And in those days, a little brush, the women know what I'm talking about, a little brush. I spit in it. I blended and smeared it in his, no one ever knew I faked it. You know, you do what you have to do. How I can't begin to tell you what happened to me for the next hour and a half, 2 hours, because I couldn't leave him, and I stood with him, and memories started flooding. I thought my heart and soul was rupturing. I can't go further with this, with you right now. The funeral, at the end of the funeral, and I'll wrap this up, the ceremony's over. Elvis is in his casket. and Vernon Presley and myself, Joe Esposito and Jerry Schilling, Sam Thompson, Dick Grobe, George Klein were standing there. The lid, and Robert Kendall, the guy from the home, he said, "I'm sorry, you guys, it's getting late. We have to close the casket." And Vernon screamed, "This is it, son. This is the final curtain." Joe Esposito took off Elvis's TCB diamond ring, handed it to Vernon, put it in his pocket. The lid's coming down, and no one will ever see Elvis Presley. And I said to myself, this is it. You have to, Larry. You have to do this. I'm sitting right next to Vernon. I put my hand on his forehead. And I closed my eyes. And I said something silently to myself and to Elvis. I pulled my hand out. The lid closed. And I wanted to be the last person to ever touch him. And I am. And let me just say this to end. Final remark. Over the years, someone asked me today, several times, different people, over many years now, what kind of a guy was Elvis? What kind of a person was Elvis? You know what I say? You really want to know what Elvis was like, the real Elvis? Because Elvis said, the world knows, they know Elvis Presley. They don't know me. They see the jumpsuit. They don't see where I'm at. They don't know where I'm coming from. They don't know how I want to help people, how I want to just send love to people. So, you really want to know Elvis? Forget the books. Forget all the books. Forget everyone who talks, me included. Listen to his music. Listen to his music. If you're in a bad mood, something's wrong, you need help, you want to be healed, you want to be soothed, you want to feel good, listen to that magical voice. That's the portal where it comes. So, a lot of people think that Elvis is speaking just to them, directly just to you. He is speaking just to you. That's the magic. That's the trip. All he wanted to do is give love. He was so happy. The first time I met him, he said, you know, my mother's middle name is Love. Gladys Love Presley. And that's all Elvis was. He was a very simple, beautiful guy that was born a twinless twin, that had an emptiness in him, and he wanted to share his love with the world. And something happened with that voice that reached into the very heart and soul of humanity, and he squeezed our hearts gently, just a little bit, just enough. And that's why we're here.